Hey, I'm Dietec, and this is a teardown and review video of the Corsair Carbide Spec 04 PC case. So I'm just going to be taking this thing out of its box and then tearing it down to its very bare bones, taking everything off of it that would possibly be able to be taken off, and then kind of giving you my humble opinion about the case based on my case modder's perspective. Even if you're not planning to mod this case yourself, this video should still be useful to you just so you can kind of see what you would be getting into if you decided to buy this case just to build your PC inside of. Now, before I get too deep into it, I should say that this case only cost me $50, so if you're looking for a budget-friendly ATX size PC case to build your computer inside of, this is definitely an option to consider. The front I/O of this case is on the right side, opposite side of the window, and only includes one USB 3.0 port and then one USB 2.0 port. We have half of the front panel allowing for air intake through this mesh dust cover area, and the other half is just solid, and in order to take off the front panel, all you do is grab it from one of the bottom corners and just pull up and out. It just pops right off because it's held on by these little knobs here that just grip onto these holes on the front panel of the case. And popping off that front panel reveals the only fan that comes with this case, which is this illuminated kind of like bluish grayish LED 120mm fan here for the intake. Now the front panel of the case does come apart a little bit, and you can actually detach this solid part completely from the side dust filter area, and to do that all you have to do is unscrew these little screws here on the side. They go all up and down the side of the case, and then there are these little clips right here that you have to unclip, and then you can just take those two sides of the front panel apart. You can also take off this dust filter area by unclipping these little portions of the dust filter that just hold onto the inside of the case. But be warned, if you do this too much, maybe more than just once or twice, you will break these little tabs off of the dust filter, and it will be a lot more difficult to get it back on. The case's side panels are held on by two thumb screws on the back, and once those are removed, you can just slide the panel right off. This front panel window is extended slightly off the front panel just for aesthetics, and if you wanted to get this thing off, you would just have to take these little tabs here around the edge of the window and bend them up, and you would just be able to slide this window right off. On the inside of the case here, we just have a ton of little areas for routing cables through, and all of the front panel cables are coming down through the cable routing area and are neatly bundled up here in the front. None of the cable routing areas have any rubber grommets, but this is a budget-friendly case, and therefore they have to make some concessions to keep the price low. And besides the cable routing areas, you have these three drive bays in your drive cage, and one of them comes with this little accessory box. Inside this little accessory box, you have a little bag that has some zip ties for cable management and some fan screws and your motherboard standoffs. Another nice thing about this case is on the bottom here, next to where the power supply intake fan would be, there is a dust cover. And that just slides right off. Now, if you're going to be painting your case or modifying it in some way like that, you're probably going to want to take off your front I/O, and to do that, all you need is a screwdriver. You just have to unscrew these screws on the front and it'll come right off. Now there are zip ties holding all of the front I/O cords in place, so you're going to have to cut them to get all of these cords out of your way. And the front I/O absolutely does come apart. There are just some screws holding it together, so all you'd have to do is unscrew them to get inside of it. And to go even deeper into the guts of the I/O, let's say if you wanted to change these two little LED lights out for a different color, you would just unscrew this little screw on the bottom, and then there are a couple clips on the side here, for example, that you would just unclip and it would come right apart. This here is the power button LED, and this under it is the actual power button right here. And then this one here on the other side is the hard drive LED, so you can change either of these out to a different color and that would be pretty cool. And finally, the last thing that you might want to take off of this case is this drive bay area. To do that, all you have to do is turn the case upside down, and there are a couple screws down here near the case feet that you just have to unscrew with your screwdriver. And to fully remove this drive cage from the case, besides those 4 screws on the bottom, you also have these 2 screws on the back that you have to unscrew. One reason that you might want to remove this hard drive cage is if you bought laptop hard drives, which are only 2.5 inches, or you had solid state drives, which are also 2.5 inches, your 2.5 inch drives can fit onto these mounts right here, which there are 2 of. Now, I would say that the standard configuration for most people is probably 1 solid state drive that you keep your operating system and maybe a couple of games on, and then 1 hard drive that you keep all of your storage on that you don't want to fill up your SSD with. Now, if you're thinking about building in this computer and you don't have any of your parts yet, consider getting a solid state drive and a laptop hard drive, which is that 2.5 inch hard drive that I was talking about before, and that would be able to mount to these holes right here, right one above the other. And that way you wouldn't have to use the hard drive cage at all. You could just completely take it out and put maybe an action figure or something like that in there. As for airflow with this case, your case will accept 6 different 120mm fans in it, 3 of which go in the front here, and the bottom of those 3 will only be accessible if you remove that hard drive cage. 2 of which go on the top of the case here, and unfortunately there is no dust cover for these top 2 intake fans. Now, the problem with the top 120mm fans not having a dust cover on them is easily remedied by just getting some really cheap dust filters from the internet, which I have right here. You can get them for just a couple of dollars and they will effectively solve the problem of not having a dust filter. And now the only thing that you have left to remove on your case is the case feet and the PCIe slots on the back, both of which only require a screwdriver to remove. So that is the Corsair Carbide Spec 04 completely dismantled. Now, there's a couple things that I really like about this case. For example, the front panel, while it originally comes in 3 different colors, that being red, yellow, and gray, and I have the gray version here with me, you can actually change it to whatever color you want with relative ease just with a can of spray paint and a screwdriver. Because you're spray painting each individual part one solid color, you don't have to do any fancy tape work or anything like that to come away with a professional look, even if you're a relatively inexperienced painter. I also like how the front I/O is really easy to take apart and the LEDs inside are very easy to change to a different color, even though the I/O on the case itself is oriented a bit strangely. It's on the opposite side of the window. It would make more sense for it to be on the side that the window is on, because if you have this thing up against a wall or something, it might be a little awkward to reach around and push those buttons or insert anything into the USB drives or anything like that. I do think cable management would be relatively easy in this case, as it is with most ATX cases, although, as I said earlier, there's no rubber grommets blocking the cable routes, so you will be able to see all of those cables through all the little cable management holes inside of your motherboard tray. It's really awesome that the hard drive cage is able to completely come out of the case, and if you only had 2.5 inch hard drives or SSDs, you'd still be able to mount them onto the motherboard tray while having that space down below for maybe an action figure or some water cooling components or something like that. I know this is kind of a subjective thing, but I don't really like how the side panels of this case bulge out a little bit, although I do recognize that that bulge on the back side panel does give you a little bit more space for cable management. It's just that the size of the window is determined by how large that square is that bulges out from the side of the case, and I personally like my windows to be a little bit bigger than that. And of course, this case doesn't come with a power supply shroud, so if you don't make your own, You will be able to see the power supply and all of the cables coming out of it, but that's kind of what my channel is all about, is fixing those problems and making your case look awesome no matter what it is. So I don't even consider that a drawback, because as a modder, I just like to make my own power supply shrouds myself anyway, although if you don't want to do that yourself, I understand why you might think that that's a bad thing. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful, or at least interesting. I do mod cases, and I am planning on modding this case specifically. If you want updates for any of those projects between videos, go ahead and look in the description for my social media accounts and follow me there. And if you haven't already and you're interested in this kind of thing, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one.